I found out from a very young age that I'm adopted. When I was 14, I did get struck by lightning. There are a limited amount of memories that I have. I didn't know who I am, and I couldn't even commit to a version of myself that I loved. I ended up starting 12 companies by the time I was 25. I'd lived the life of playing golf with celebrities and partying in Vegas, selling companies in Japan. I felt extremely hollow.
How do you go from where you were to starting the Heart Leader podcast?
I met you. We don't have to have it all figured out. But when we do have clarity, intention, and purpose, we feel that we are leading from love.
During our book tour, we've been traveling all over, getting to talk to amazing bookstores and wonderful people. And one of those stops took us to Philadelphia, where our fantastic podcast producer, Calvin, is located from Engine FM. And in that conversation that we got to have over one of two phenomenal dinners that we shared, he pointed out that we haven't really done an interview style with one another so that our fantastic community could get to know us. We talk to each other a lot. And when I'm talking with other guests, I definitely get to dive in and do origin story discovery with them. But we don't really do it with each other so that our community knows our origin stories and understands what the Heart Leader podcast itself is about. We've talked about what it means to be a heart leader, but why did we start the Heart Leader podcast? Why did we found Sweevera? These are missing links. So, first of all, shout out to Calvin for calling us out. Love you, Calvin. We really appreciate you and all the work that you and your team do to make this podcast phenomenal. But likewise, I want to follow up on what he said because sometimes the things that we need to do are so obviously in front of our face that we miss it and we would have tripped over it if not for somebody else pointing it out. So I want to know if I can interview you today.
Let's do it, baby.
You are an amazingly fascinating human being.
Let's stop there. This has been great. All right. This is
We're done.
excellent interview.
Whew.
Perfect. Thank you.
Best one you've ever had.
And next time on the Heart Leader podcast.
No, but it's true. That's why when we started out in our relationship, we started out as friends, and it got to the point where I fell in love with my best friend because you are such a fascinating, amazing human being, just from a soul level, a human level. And the fact that I get this opportunity to step out of being your partner for a moment, and I get to interview you in a way that others will get to know you in that capacity makes me very happy.
Thank you, my love.
What I would like to start with is when we met, you were holding on to a lot of things from your early life, as we all do. Not that it was good or bad or indifferent, just a lot.
I had some baggage.
A little bit. We all do.
We all do.
And I'll drudge my baggage out when it's my turn. I promise. But what would you say was one of the primary pieces of luggage that you kept carrying with you through each step of your life's destinations that you just kept holding on to and refusing to check somewhere?
I think the problem was I think it felt like a checked bag because it's annoying and you're lugging it around and you have it for a little bit and then you like put it away and then you don't have to deal with it. And it's really nice. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't. And then when you get to your next destination, it's like, oh, yeah, I
Well,
got
it's
this thing
still
again.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you keep having to do it. So it really did feel more like a check bag. Um, well, I guess now that I'm thinking it through, I probably have a couple of those.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Which one would you want to start with?
Probably first one was uh, authenticity, really lack thereof, not knowing who I am. Guess kind of that whole bubble, if you will.
Where did that start, though?
Um, that started, I would say, probably at a very young age. I'm very fortunate that I have amazing parents, and what I'm about to say is not a reflection on them.
No, they are amazing. I
They're
know
amazing.
them. They're amazing.
And so they could have done all the things in the world that would be textbook and perfect and all that. And I still could have chosen exactly what I did. So um, they were and remain amazing parents. And just how we frame things, it's they didn't do anything to make me think this way. This is just things were brought forward. And so this is what I thought about them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just want to make sure that that's well stated. Um, I found out from a very young age that I'm adopted.
Do you ever get tired of that negative voice in your head telling you what you can and cannot do? My name is Amber Mikesell, and I personally got tired of that villainous voice controlling my inner realm. So I wrote this book, Silence Your Inner Critic. It's a comic book type series where you go in and you fight that villainous foe all along an epic quest. You can learn more about this fun filled adventure over at silenceyourinnercritic.com, and you can purchase your copy right there, or you can purchase it wherever you enjoy buying books.
And that was a lot, I would say, for most of my young years. I didn't really fully know the gravity or understand the depth of that. My parents were very, very open, which is amazing. When it comes to adoptions, that's not very common. A lot of adoptions are what's called closed adoptions. We had what's called an open adoption, and they had told me from very, very young age, that I was not a baby in mommy's tummy. That was the understanding.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't. I kind of by asking a lot of questions, as I've just always done in my life, as you know, uh, and you'll get that when I interview you. The questions
Yeah.
will be back. I realized that there is an adoption process, and that typically you have to pay for adoption, and typically it can be very, very expensive as well. So my understanding at that time was that if if you pay for something, you get a receipt, and if you have a receipt, you have the ability to take it back. So I felt like I had to be on my very, very best behavior, or else I would be returned. That I had to be the model child. I had to get the straight A's. I had to, you know, my one piece of hair couldn't be out of, place. That I had to just have the highest expectation. And again, these weren't things that my parents put on me. I
So
never
they
did
didn't
that.
say that to
No,
you
not
ever.
once. Nothing like that. They had high standards for me because they wanted me to succeed, but not to this degree. This is like a whole other level of just a misunderstanding.
Yeah. Your friends never said anything like that to you?
I can't fully remember on that, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, we can dive into this, but I did get struck by lightning when I was 14, and there are a limited amount of memories that I have. I can run through them, and when they're there, I can experience them and express them. But in terms of beyond that, it's highly a stretch.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember where it came from. I just remember that that is the core. And I don't remember anything specific other than the fact that, like, through meditation and through deep dives into past healing and through different ceremonies, it's been that has what has come up in terms of what was the mental mind frame that I was going through that created that. And I do understand that it was self created. Even if another kid said it,
Yeah,
I didn't have to believe it. That's a choice.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, I could have talked to my parents. They were very open, very happy to talk about these kind of things at any point. It was my understanding, and no one else could have set it up for me like I did. So that perpetually put me in a state of not being good enough. That is a byproduct of not knowing who I am. If I don't know who I am, then I'm never going to be good enough
Yeah.
because it's a fleeting thought. Who am I? What is good? What is enough? In relative to who, right?
So you're carrying that luggage from place to place to place, different stages of your life. You said there were two.
Yes. Another byproduct of this, and I wanted to bring the first one up first because the second one is relative to that. The other one was commitment, as you know. You had a little experience with that one. Again, because I didn't know who I am, and I couldn't even commit to a version of myself that I loved, and there was no way that I could commit to anyone else. There was a chasm, deep, deep chasm between those two things.
So you mentioned that you were struck by lightning.
Mm.
Since you had these things that you were carrying around with you, when you were struck by lightning, did this erase all of that? Did it amplify all of that? What impact did getting struck by lightning have on your life?
I wish these things got zapped away so I could start fresh and
Shazam!
yeah, that would be nice. Exactly. But no, unfortunately, it created a situation where I was not aware for a long time of what really occurred or why or how I got to the understanding or the mental model as a 14-year-old. Whatever childhood, and trauma is a lack of, I mean, it's a word. There wasn't like a physical trauma or, anything was mental. And a lot of it was relative to myself, to the world around me, how I was interacting with it. I've always been extremely inquisitive and asking why seemed to really piss everyone off. And so that was frustrating 'cause I was like, you're saying we're supposed to learn. I'm asking why. You're telling me to shut up. I don't, how can I learn? And so I just never understood that. And so I felt like I was always either a bother or a problem or, um, I shouldn't talk or, and so it was just things like that I had an awareness of that, but I couldn't tell you, oh, these were all the different things that happened over my life that made me feel that. And
Yeah.
so it, in some ways, it felt like a fresh start. Um, if you would have asked people who knew me when I was in grade school versus who knew me in high school,
Mhm.
you say I was a very different person. In some ways, I feel like I got a fresh start, and that was great. I got to choose a different version of myself and move forward with that. The problem is later in life, so I was at 14. By the time I was 25, I felt extremely hollow, and I realized that I had started what I felt was a fresh start in some ways was actually uh, built on a difficult foundation, a foundation of untruth, a foundation of inauthenticity, a foundation of pain that had been deferred.
It had to be really challenging to lose memories, especially at 14 when your parents, who are these incredibly lovely people, and you had built memories together.
Mhm.
and you didn't have the opportunity to remember them in the same way that your parents remembered them.
Mhm.
And you're talking about having a commitment issue, right? But that I could only project, right? I don't know, but I would anticipate that would feed into commitment issues because the deepest commitment you have, which is with your parents,
Mhm.
you can't even remember the the connections that you guys had forged up until you were 14.
Mhm.
That would be challenging. So how did you navigate through those moments where your parents are having these deep remembrances and sharing memories with you, and you don't have the memory accessible to you?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's been, as you were aware,
Uh-huh.
that's been brought up more recently as I've been going through old things.
Mhm.
Um, there are, memory boxes and things like that. A vast majority of what we went through, I have no recollection of. And this is very difficult for me, just in terms of like a life functioning thing, because I have a photographic memory.
Mhm.
So, like the golf course, and I learned this through my earliest memory is learning this through golf. I can play the golf course, and I'd play it once. I could go back home, and I would play it in my mind. This is something my dad taught me, um, and I would actually go through every shot. And so I could see the golf course. I can fly it like I'm a drone, and go through. I can zoom in, zoom out. I can remember where everything is. Like that's just so when I remember something, I remember every detail of it. And
Mhm.
so that's my experience of memory. And so to me, it is very jarring when I don't remember something. It almost is like it just didn't exist. It didn't happen. And so sometimes, unfortunately, it can maybe come off. Maybe I can come off cold. Maybe I can come off indifferent, and it's not intentional. It's just I don't have anything to pull from, and so I can't really have that deep dive. I can't experience it. Where if it is something, then yeah, I can have the full experience. I can express it and have fun with it and relive it and almost embody it. Um, I can see it just like as if I'm watching a TV, and it on TV. Like that's how real it is. It's almost like a VR, and so it's how I remember a lot of things. It's it helps me a ton in a lot of ways, and it helps me with how I can even with my golf swing. I remember what my golf swing looks like, so I can mimic it and allow my body to make the movements based on that from multiple different sides. And so that's why, like, if I don't play golf for a while and I come back, yes, there is muscle memory, but also I can lock right in again. So I'm bringing that context as kind of like a background of it's been very difficult, especially more recently, because my parents have these memory boxes, and I want to be able to connect with them at that level. And so, yeah, there was even moments of unworthiness or moments of um, almost shame that I can't. Why can't I remember? And why can't I wish I could remember and have that experience and make that connection and be in the moment just like they remember. And
Yeah.
it makes me feel like there's a disconnect or like we're pulled apart, and that's the last thing that I want.
So what do you do when moments like that come up for you?
Mm.
As someone who has navigated through, and you will get to how you moved into becoming a founder of organizations like Sweevera and the Heart Leader podcast. But now you are on the other side of that, right? And you're having a moment like that as a result of getting struck by lightning at 14. You have I mean, you had commitment issues, but once we've had these, they're with us. They're part of our psyche that we must always be aware of. You've had being authentic issues. Again, you're through it, but it's in your psyche in a way. So now you're present with going through these memory boxes with your family, and these feelings are arising in you. What do you do having been through it and knowing that it's still a fabric that has been woven into your psyche to not let that take over you and pull you back in?
That's a great question. You should host a podcast.
I should.
I would say I'm still learning. That's a newer to some degree in this specific area. It's a little
Yeah,
bit newer. I
it's
mean, we hadn't looked at
fair.
these memory boxes in a long time. I honestly didn't know they had a lot of them or a lot of the things. Um, in some ways, I guess by not remembering, there's an embedded disassociation.
Mm.
And so when it comes to like letting things go, I'm pretty good at that because it's okay, and I don't feel tied to it. It would pull me back in some way. What would is sometimes maybe my parents' response. Like they have a longing or they feel connected to that memory. And I want to, and it feels like I can't meet them at where they are. And so if there was something that did pull me back, it would be that. And I can't claim that I didn't desire to, but probably the just the disassociation helped me remain in the present. It's I spent a lot of my life recognizing that a lot of the pain that I experience is my own, created by what I regretted in the past or feared in the future. And so a lot of the effort over the last 10 years, working with you, working with myself, learning from amazing friends and people and books and courses and all of that, I really realized how incredible the present moment is, how healing the present moment is, how authentic the present moment is. And so the more that I stay in the present, I feel like the easier it is to be my authentic self. So I'm not pretending. And anytime there are moments, because there's always going to be triggers or things like that attempt to, as you said, like it's still part of the psyche. So there are going to be moments or threads that pull on where we have unconscious moments. But the key word is moment, right? You and I have talked a lot in other podcasts about mastery. Mastery isn't just never having it again. It's your ability to move through it at an exceptionally quick pace. So things that may have taken years come down to 1 year, and then down to months, and then down to weeks, and then down to days, and then down to hours and minutes, and then seconds, and then even to split seconds, right? And so I would say those I still have those feelings. It's just navigating them at a much more rapid pace is what helps me remain more in the present, reminding myself that when I'm in the present, then I feel the most connected to uh, divinity. And that's not only that which lives within me, but that which lives in everything from my perspective. And so that through choice, I feel like that is all of our opportunity to be creator beings. And so when I'm in the now moment, I can choose how I desire to show up. And the more that I stay in that framework, then the more I can choose myself, which is to me a way of choosing God, love, source. Um, and that I feel more connected to the oneness of all things.
So you move through your teens, having been struck by lightning and honestly nearly dying.
Mhm.
Do you want to explain what it's like for anyone who's ever wondered, what is it like getting struck by lightning? What is it like getting struck by lightning?
Man, it hurts. I remember just a white hot flash of pain and then out. Fortunately, it didn't last long. That was the best. part was that it wasn't like a long lasting pain, because that would be rough. I can't imagine. And I was out on the golf course. Thankfully, I was standing in front of a very large tree, which took the brunt of it. So that is, I feel, that's not scientifically proven by any means, but I feel that, yeah, not science, but I just genuinely feel inside of me that that's why I didn't die, is because the tree and the sprinkler systems that are all metal underneath the golf course took a lot of that. And then I was in the mix of it. And so, um, my I was part of my pre-shot routine was having the golf club up, as I was standing behind the golf ball, visualizing my shot. And so I was in the process of doing that when the lightning struck. And for reference, it was not raining. Like, it wasn't like, Caddyshack, where it was like obvious that I was probably going to get struck by
Yeah.
lightning, or else I would not have been out there. Lightning can strike up to 25 miles away. And so, in this situation, I don't know how far it was, but it wasn't right over us. And so it was pretty amazing that, it was like, whoa. So I felt all of it. I blacked out. I just know that my golf club hit my mouth. My lip split in half. The muscle that goes all the way around my mouth, contracted. And so my dad was there. He thought that I died. So he came, picked me up, brought me to the cart. Fortunately, we had a friend that was a surgeon. So went into surgery. They were able to pull it back together, stitch that inside, and then stitch that back together. So if I shaved, you'd see a nice little scar going on there. And yeah, I don't know. I woke up kind of. There are moments of some clarity in there. Like, I remember maybe bits or pieces. Um, Oftentimes, like, you'll see in movies, like when something traumatic happens, and it shows the person, and they're like, oh, and then they're like, oh, and they're in different places, and they're attempting to piece it together. That's very much what it felt like. And when I remember full awareness when I got to the hospital, like after the surgery, and kind of waking back up. And yeah, it was interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
Probably more interesting what happened next. Um, 2 days later, I was set to go for my tryouts for my high school golf team. There was only one spot left on the varsity golf team, and it was a 4-day trial. And at that point in my life, I was playing golf, but I think my best score was like 78 on a par 72. So I was like, okay, I was high for 14, like not bad, mid high, 77, 78, somewhere in that area. On a bad day, I'd shoot 83, 85, but on a good day, I was 76, 77, 78, somewhere in there. So I never shot par, or broken par, never shot under par, any of that kind of stuff. And so, I show up 2 days later after this happening, stitches, the whole thing going on.
Your mouth
My
probably looked
mouth,
phenomenal at
it
that
was
point.
so crazy. Yeah, I shot my first round under par. Um, I shot 70 the first day, 68 the second day, and then 71 the third day. And I was up by 9 strokes. And so, you know, coach said, "Hey, you're in. Like, let's just stop the trial there. Anyone can come out and play the fourth day, but this is
It's done.
we're done." So, and then that kind of jump started my golf career. And so, yeah, like a whole new mental model came forward. Like, oh, I can do this. This is new.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of wild, just to go from that pain, and you know, I don't know what opened the door for that golfing ability, for it to shift that much in just 2 days. But yeah, it went from never have ever done this to a whole new approach, like, to golf.
But as quickly as it came on, it also left.
Yes,
You want to talk about that?
yes, yes. I feel like in some ways reflecting on it now, the lightning strike of the memories in some ways, it canceled a lot of my self memory of self-doubt in some ways. Like I was kind of open and I was just like, hey, whatever, why not? The fear, the anxiety, the stress around things that I had went away, was gone. So I could play at a much higher capacity. Same with school. It was really anything I was doing, and that probably lasted for about 2 or 3 years. And when I started to get a little bit more social, especially when it came to meeting girls or um, meeting new friends, all of that kind of stuff, I started to let the inner critic creep back in.
Mhm.
And f- in terms of golf, it didn't necessarily hurt my golf game, but it hurt a lot of other parts of my life. It was in that moment that I started to fall back into compartmentalizing. I started to really struggle in a lot of ways, and I lost who I was through that process effectively. By the time I got to college, I wasn't really aware of who I was other than the identity of a golfer. Because I did have a full golf scholarship to college, and that was something I was known for and did well, and people recognized me for that. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to attach to that. And then I would look at like, what are all the best golfers doing? How do they interact? And so I started to emulate, um, different people in my life. I would see, oh, this person is great at talking with girls, so I'm going to do what they're doing. This person is, great at dressing, so I'm gonna buy clothes from where they are. So it wasn't like, what am I doing? It was, what is everything and everyone around me doing? And then how can I do it? How can I become them in a compartmentalized fashion in my life? Thinking that would bring the best version of me. But the reality is, it was just pulling me and separating me from myself the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a point where your golf game, it came on really quick. Then your golf game left really
Mhm.
quick. And it does tie a little bit to not knowing who you are
Mhm.
because it came out of attempting to impress.
Yeah,
Can
definitely.
you share what happened?
Partly through my college career. This was this was my sophomore year. I got bits and pieces it through my freshman year, but there was a point where I actually started to play well again. It was like a dip, and it was mainly because I was just in a new place. So it was a lot of that I was attempting to figure out. And once I kind of got things together, and I actually started to play well. But sophomore year, I really started to take on this external version of me because I really wanted to be liked by everyone around me. And it was like through that process that, um, honestly, even golf kind of started to fade. My love for it, my passion for it, my connection to it, it just started to kind of disappear, all the way to the point to where I ended up getting the yips. Yeah.
Yips.
In one tournament, I went from leading the tournament the first day, and this was our home event, which is funny because it was actually set in Arizona. So even though University of Denver, Colorado, we had our event in Arizona, just because of the great weather and stuff like that. And so on the first day, I shot 67, was leading the tournament, and the second day, it all kind of culminated, and I really struggled on the golf course. Um, I wasn't really putting very well, but I was hitting it really well. But I couldn't really. I was struggling scoring, so I shot 75. The next day, it all just went. I believe I shot like 83 or 84 or 85. I don't know. I think I just did my best to get out of it. So, so that was a consecutive 3 days, 67, 75, then like 83, 84. And I was literally shaking when I was holding my putter. I couldn't. Yeah. It was I was lucky to even shoot 83 or 84, to put in perspective. Like, parts of my golf game were still okay to enough to get me around. Um, but when it came to just putting, I just couldn't even hold a putter. And I got to a point where I was like just using one hand, just to, I was like, I don't know what to do here. I was just complete loss. And so yeah, that was definitely the the downfall of that, which was very tied to me at this point having a very perceived successful social life.
Mhm.
I was finally getting attention from people. Um, had all the connections around downtown Denver. I was very hooked in, if you will,
Mhm.
and I was valuing that far more than anything else.
So you hit a point where that wasn't working for you anymore.
Mhm.
What brought you to that point?
What happened after is I worked with a sports psychologist, and I ended up getting. I actually had to petition to the NCAA to take beta blockers because beta blockers are actually illegal. But if you have a medical case, then you can take them. So I started taking beta blockers. Sadly, it didn't help. That's just how distressed I was. And it helped in some areas of my life where I didn't feel like anxious on a day-to-day basis. But the moment I stepped on the golf course, it was just I could have taken all the beta blocker. It didn't matter. It was just so talking with the sports psychologist really helped understand kind of what that there was something more going on and that I couldn't there was a big level of codependency and that this wasn't a solution for me long term.
Mhm.
And then in some ways I felt like I was, even though it was illegal, like it was legal, but I still
Mhm.
felt like I was cheating.
Mhm.
It's like I should be able to figure this out. I shouldn't need something outside of myself. Um, so at that point, I kind of really got into, uh, drinking and partying and being out and just kind of numbing. And so that seemed to find a way for the next year. Yeah, everything was an escape.
So you stopped beta blockers
Stop beta
and
blockers.
subbed in alcohol and
Mhm.
partying.
Correct.
Great solution.
Yeah, yeah, that's mm, college intelligence right there.
No judgment, just
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like when you say it like that, it sounds really dumb. I- In when you're in the thick of it, things don't.
no,
Doesn't
it's
feel
whatever
like
you can do to get out
it felt
of
like
the hole
survival.
you were in. Yeah,
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah, it felt like survival. And it felt like fun. I was like, man, I'm actually having fun again. And then my
Yeah.
golf game started to get better up until it had the biggest thing, which was my body just had a full shutdown. And so March of 2010, um, I was playing golf with John Elway up in Denver, and it was really nice. We had a lot of fun playing with him. He would play with all the guys on the team. And that day I was with him. We were having long drive contests, and I was playing well. I was beating him, so I was feeling good. And on the last hole in Highlands Ranch, 9 goes down, 18 goes up. And so you basically aim in the middle because hole 18 is like a par five and it's just straight uphill, right? So you aim in the middle of these two and you just hit it as hard as you can. That's kind of the go-to because it's pretty wide open. Yeah.
It's fun
So
too.
it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did, and I hit it 429 yards on the fly. And we heard this snap. We thought it was my golf club. Um, and I did. I actually had a dent in my golf club. So I thought, oh wow, okay, this was it. It was on the face. Um, and I had so much adrenaline going. I was so excited. We were, all of us took our carts. We were, driving up, and mine was the last one. And I kind of started to feel it. I was waiting for everyone to kind of hit their shots. The adrenaline was kind of falling off. I was like, wow, this something feels really weird. I started to get nauseous. I felt really funky, and I had a lob wedge into this par five. Like, so, I didn't have to, this was a really, yeah, I hit it far, right?
You're
So,
like, I got
so
this.
I got this. I can at least get this on the green. Maybe I can make an eagle, and it'd be really cool. I start taking some practice swings. I feel really woozy. I get to about halfway up my swing as I'm about to hit, and I just completely collapsed. And yeah, that was really rough. I don't know how, in full transparency, I don't know how I really don't know how I was able to navigate getting from there I remember like having to talk with my coach who thought I was faking, which didn't help. So he couldn't get like an ambulance or anything like that. So I actually had to drive myself to the hospital. And this is probably the first time in my life where I would say I really felt like maybe there was guardian angels. Like I didn't know another word than that. That was something that I had felt,
Something was watching
something
over
was, yeah,
you.
it kind of reminded me of like, the movie Angels in the Outfield.
Uh-huh.
And it was like they would, throw a baseball and like, the angel would be there and like throw it with them and it would like go further and it was, or faster, so it was kind of like that. Um, and and then I got to the hospital. I got out of the car, but I fell over again and I couldn't stand up. So I kind of had to army crawl my way in. Fortunately, someone was there, saw what I was doing, helped me up. And yeah, I was in there for a couple days. So that was tough. My parents weren't there. Like, they were back home. So they weren't in the same city that I was in. And so a lot of phone calls, a lot of figuring stuff out. But I was basically told I'd never play golf again. I had a herniated disc explosion in my neck, one in my back, 3 cracked ribs, vertigo, and psoas all at once.
And just like that, golf was gone.
Yep. Yep. My dream of playing professional golf, which was only 1 year away, just out, gone.
So, what did that do to your sense of identity since you came in identifying yourself as a golfer?
Rocked it. That was all I knew. Um, so to be told I wouldn't play golf again was, well, then what's the point? What's I don't. What do I do? What is the purpose of life? This is what I've been training. It felt like I had been training a lot of my life for.
Mm.
For as much fun as I had in my life, I did sacrifice a lot. I was the person who would put 9 hours on the range during the summers and breaks. I would play 36 holes in a day. I really put in the time. And anyone who really know me can tell you that. So I didn't know I didn't know what to do outside. I never really done anything outside of golf.
So your whole life was just ripped out from under you. As quickly as it was given, it was taken.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for anybody who's had that experience, how did you pivot? What did you do?
I wish I could say that I had all the answers and then I fixed it and then life went great.
I pivoted like a ballerina.
Yes,
It was more like
like
Ross
a Ross.
Geller.
Yeah. Uh, but no, anything but the finesse of a ballerina in my response. No, I got in deeper to the social life experience. Um, at that point, social media was really starting, Facebook and stuff and Instagram were really kind of starting to take off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have all this time. What do I don't even know what to do with school. Like, I never really, like now what I major in actually, really does matter because I don't need a major if you're going to be a professional golfer. That was my thought process, right?
Oh, of
That
course.
makes sense.
Why do you need an education to
Yeah,
golf?
yeah. I mean, I was still doing well. Like I still double majored. Like but it wasn't like I didn't really care what I majored in because it was like, it didn't even the idea of a plan B wasn't even in my mindset.
Yeah, I
And
get you.
so yeah, I really got into the social life of, um, yeah, partying and drinking. So I really that was just my life was centered around that, and just meeting people and just you know s- networking. It was like collecting, I guess, if you will, um, and just attempting to prove myself to everyone. And at the same time, I saw, okay, so here's Mark Zuckerberg and I'm forgetting the guy who started Instagram, but he just, sold his, so entrepreneurship started really coming forward, especially when it came to tech and those kind of things. And just entrepreneurship in general it started like social media became almost like a hub for, as we know now today, it's huge on social media. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Like, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be my own boss, just like I would with golf. I'd travel the world just like I would with golf. I was attempting to mirror golf, but replace the doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was interesting. So I experienced a
How
lot
did
of
that
different
work out
things.
for you?
I did a lot of different things. I got into music and loved the experience and realized it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I'd say that's a really good answer to a lot of things. I ended up starting 12 companies by the time I was 25, loving the experience, but realizing it's not what I wanted to do.
By the way, if you're interested in looking him up, Austin Uhl is on iTunes and other platforms. You can find his one album out
Mhm.
there.
Yes. I mean, the memories were great. Obviously, meeting Greg and we just got back from his event with TFP and what they're doing, Final Percent. So it's like it's great that we can still best friends from that experience. Like that was more valuable than I could ever ask for.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. Like it's funny. Like through those years, the people I met are I'm still a lot of friends with a lot of them. But the experience, like everyone was like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. This isn't who I am." And even though I realized this isn't what I wanted, it was like I would lean into it more to be like almost forcing it.
Yeah.
And so I'd get into more things and more things and more things. And by the time I was 25, I had some great successes um, and so I just had everything on paper you could want, but I was extremely unhappy, very unhappy. I'd lived the life of playing golf with celebrities and partying in Vegas and selling companies in Japan and I had like all of those accolades, right? Having a great network in Scottsdale, being able to walk into any door I wanted to, going into Vegas, being able to walk in any door I wanted to there, LA as well. And it was a really like, this is what it should be like to be, a successful entrepreneur man in, as 25, um, you know, dating different girls all the time and, meeting new people and sparking new business. And it was like, that is what it should be to be a happy, successful man. And I couldn't be further from that.
Mm.
I felt hollow. I felt depressed. I felt disconnected. I felt lost. I felt just deep sadness, and attempting to cover it with a smile so that no one knew.
Yeah.
Because, gosh, what would it mean like if I was actually vulnerable, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So how do you go from that to founding an organization like Sweevera, where the entire mission is using love as a common language to really bring all belief systems together, all cultures, all people, really, so that they can grow together from the very things that you're expressing, knowing they're not alone in that journey, that there are resources, there are opportunities, that we're all in this together and we all have this shared human experience that we're navigating. How do you go from where you were in that to co-founding an organization like Sweevera or starting the Heart Leader podcast to show that heart-centered leadership and thinking is equally, if not the starting point for true thought leadership?
Mm,
That seems like such a far swing, right? To go from being having everything on paper and being so unhappy to establishing organizations that are so different.
mm. I met you. My love catalyst.
Oh, I did not anticipate that answer.
Yeah. Well, a couple weeks after my lowest point, I met you. And you embodied a level of love that I never knew was possible. You met me with grace, understanding, a deep desire just to connect, and complete non judgment. And in the world that I was living, I felt like I was constantly getting judged, and I felt like I was constantly judging everyone around me. It felt like this loop that I couldn't get out of. And the moment I met you, I felt like I got a break from the loop. I just didn't know that was possible. So I was like, how do I, you know, how do I be like that? And so, this was probably the one time that was really good in my life to want to emulate someone.
Oh,
um, but you shared from the very beginning that it wasn't about emulating you, it was about how do I learn to be me? And so much of motivation and stories and personal growth that I had found is like, tap into your mentors, see what they're doing and do what they're doing and watch it. And those are good things. There's a lot of good things you can do from that. And by watching other people and seeing what they're doing and what works, I'm not discounting that by any means. There's also just another side to it. There's a side where you can lose yourself through that process. There's a side when you can attempt to be everyone that you're not.
yeah.
And so I was doing my best from age 22 to 25 to dive into the motivation space. And again, I didn't realize that I was just perpetuating that experience of losing myself, being everyone I wasn't. You're the first person that I had experienced that said, that really understood is like, hey, you need to be yourself. Who are you actually? What you've written multiple business plans and they have mission statements. What's yours? What's your personal mission statement? What do you stand for? What do you align with? What makes you spark? These are questions that I've never heard anyone ask these before. And so it was just a whole new way of living, one that felt so natural too. Like the others all felt exhausting. And I constantly had to attempt to remember who I was, where I was, when I was, attempting to be this person to that person and this version of me to another person. And, but it was like, man, like what you're saying is just, oh, I can just be myself all the time. And then I can just be. We're called a human being. So I can just be the being part of a human being and remember like what I'm here for and why and like that's okay. So that's how.
I'm very grateful that you chose to embrace the being that you are,
Mm,
because that spark that you lit has sparked so many others to do the same.
mm,
And it takes a very brave person to navigate through their own fires and to come through it and say, now I desire to walk back that path and illuminate it for others so that as they're choosing to walk through it themselves, it'll be at least a little bit brighter
mm,
and easier for them to see the way. You're not carrying them through it in any way. It is simply a little more illuminated, and you'll walk with them and talk, answering any questions they have along the way. And I would say that's why when we talked about starting these organizations, that's why we started them.
We don't tell people how to be or what to do. We just help remind them of the possibilities that are within them. There's a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
We are all limitless beings. The only limitations that we have are the ones that we place on ourselves. And when we stay in those, that's the reality that we're creating. And I'd been there. I mean, that's the limitations I was putting on myself through all those different aspects. It's like no wonder I couldn't flourish. No wonder I couldn't be happy. No wonder I couldn't feel calm. No wonder I couldn't feel peace. Just because I had so much disharmony within myself because of the limitations I was placing on myself. It wasn't until I broke free and allowed the limitless nature of who I am to flourish, which then the byproduct is harmony. So I have that internal harmony, which then allows my world around me to feel harmonious because that's in collaboration. I was so stuck in what I now recognize as a lack mentality. And so I had to extract, I had to pull, I had to take in order for me to lift up. And these weren't things like, it's not like I was stealing or doing any of these kind of things. I was shocked by how what is viewed in society as nice or kind or things are actually things that are from a lack space. So what is the intention behind the action? So am I meeting someone and wanting to connect with them because I just genuinely want to know who they are as a soul? Or was it because I wanted to get something out of them? Because I wanted to meet the people that they knew who could get me where I wanted to be in my business or in my life. So even though I was attempting to be nice and I really wanted to be nice, what was the true intention? Well, that wasn't aligned. That wasn't actually nice. That wasn't who I am. Who I am is someone who genuinely loves to experience someone's soul, because I feel like that's the greatest gift each of us have is the ability to experience our own souls. That's why we're here. What greater experience do we get is than to experience ourselves, not from a selfish standpoint, but from love, from abundance, from limitless potential, from understanding that whatever you do lets the collective consciousness on a human level and a universal level know what's possible.
Mm.
That's so exciting. That takes personal responsibility and moves it into abundance. That it's not something that you're holding on you and you have the whole world on your back. It's no, it's I'm stepping in with the billions of other souls to lift up together.
Yeah.
Like we all know that we have strength in oneness. And so when we can embody that oneness, then we can truly feel that love and that connection, and that divinity, and just the essence of what we all know it. It's that big K knowing. And oftentimes we're just in our own way to see it and experience it and feel it.
Thank you for being willing to share
Yeah.
about yourself and how you navigated through and just being vulnerable.
Mm.
It gives everyone an opportunity to know you in a different way. And we talk about so many deep subjects and we share little snippets of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But to actually have an opportunity to sit and soak things in from a more linear progression and a deeper dive into those things, I feel is incredibly helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, my love. I appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully people can see that, we all make mistakes. The learning process of getting to know who we are it doesn't just end. It's all the way until we leave from here, and probably
Probably
even
after.
beyond. There we go. As we just there we go.
Probably
Probably
after. I
after,
can't
right?
imagine. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't have to have it all figured out. We don't have to put that pressure on ourselves. And we're going to make mistakes. I still make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to continue to make a lot of mistakes. But when we do have clarity, intention, and purpose, and we feel that we are leading from love, I feel like they become far and few between, which is nice.
I agree. You like to wrap us up?
Thank you all for tuning in today and just listening to my story. I can't wait to do this with Amber, actually, and do a deep dive and interview and connection with her so you guys can experience her on a deeper level. As Amber was saying, we do talk a lot about so many different topics in different ways, and we do our best to weave in stories. But it probably helps to just get a greater context from where we're coming from. And it means a lot to us when we can get greater context from you. There's 1.3 million of you in our community around the world. And we would love to hear anything that you're willing to share. Feel free to put in the comments, share these stories, what connected with you. If you had any of the experiences that I had, or maybe some degree or level of it, um, did you find a way through? How creative were you? I'd love to hear this because these are still things that I'm even struggling with, and would love to learn from you just as much as I hope you're learning from my experience as well. And if you would like to dive into our community and have these type of conversations, you can not only post in the comments, but you can actually join our communities. You can go check out on our website. We have Relationship Evolution. You'll be able to join the wait list, and that's going to be our big main community here at Sweevera. And we're also going to have we also have the Silence Your Inner Critic community as well. So if you're really into that book and you want to dive into a community there and really work with people who are actively silencing their inner critic, sharing where their inner critic is showing up, and taking effort to actually silence it and move forward in their life, that's just an incredible community as well. And so we're going to make this really, really simple. Have all the different communities in the description below, and we're actually going to be doing quite a bit. So these next few months after this, you're going to see a lot of movement within Sweevera. And so join in, come explore, have fun with us, and can't wait to see you in the community.